Crimes of the Future takes place in the near future, where human beings have begun to evolve in ways like losing their sense of pain and growing new organs that will enable them to digest toxic objects. The movie starts by introducing us to Brecken, a young boy who lives with his mother. Brecken has evolved, and he is able to eat and digest plastic. His mother is not pleased with Brecken's habit. She even calls him a monster because of it, and she tries to stop him. On one night, after brushing his teeth, Brecken begins eating the plastic waste paper bin under the sink. The mother looks troubled when she sees this, but does not stop him. When Brecken goes to sleep, his mother uses a pillow to cover the boy's face and kills him by suffocation. After she takes the boy's life, she calls his father to come pick up the boy, but when the father arrives, he only finds his dead son and not the mother. In the next scene, we see a woman named Caprice next to a floating bed with a man called Saul Tenser in it. The man is in pain because human evolution is growing new organs inside his body, and the bed he sleeps in is especially made to help people like him deal with the pain. Caprice and Tenser are a famous performance artist couple. Since people don't feel pain anymore, the two perform surgeries in public as art. They extract different organs that Saul grows for show. After Tenser wakes up, Caprice looks into his body to see what has been causing him pain in his sleep. She discovers that Tenser has grown a new functioning organ that has never been seen before in his stomach. Next, we see Tenser sitting in his breakfast chair, eating his breakfast, and somehow this chair is helping him adjust every part of his body to make chewing, swallowing, and digesting easy, just like his bed helps him sleep. Caprice and Tenser head to the National Organ Registry office after their discovery. They meet a man named Whippet and his partner, Timlin. The two work for the government to register new organs from evolving people and mark them for removal because the government wants to prevent people from turning into something other than human beings. Whippet and Timlin take a look at Tenser's new organ and mark it with a tattoo. Caprice films the operation with a ring on her finger, which happens to be a camera, while she interviews Whippet at the same time. Whippet explains that they register new organs whose functions are unknown so they can keep track of them. They fear that the organs may establish themselves genetically and be passed down from parents to children who would no longer be humans. Their concept of tattooing organs was inspired by the performances of Saul Tenser. When Timlin sees Caprice recording, she suddenly snaps and stops her from recording since their department isn't legal yet and they might get in trouble. After they get back home from the organ registry office, Tenser and Caprice get two mechanics to fix Tenser's bed so it can help with his pain. They are two ladies by the names of Router and Burst. We later see Caprice performing a surgery on Tenser in front of an audience as part of their show. In the audience, we see Whippet and Timlin, who were invited by Tenser, and Brecken's father, a man by the name of Lang. After the show, Timlin approaches Tenser, who was resting with Caprice, and she asks him something. Timlin is interested in what Caprice and Tenser were doing, and she even compares the surgery to sex, saying that she felt that way when she was watching their performance. Meanwhile, at the same place, we see Lang at a counter with a couple of people. He takes out a purple synthetic candy bar and then takes a bite and puts it on the counter. Another guy from across him grabs it and takes a bite, but it poisons him because he can't digest plastics like Lang. Lang watches this man as he chokes and falls on the floor, dying from the bar he ate. On the next day, a detective from the new Vice Department meets with Timlin and Whippet. The NVD is a police unit that investigates evolving humans and tries to prevent them from evolving by making sure every new organ they have is removed. The detective asks Whippet and Timlin about Saul Tenser. The two get excited and explain to the detective that they have a portfolio of all the new organs Tenser has developed and removed. They claim Tenser to be an artist of the caliber like Picasso. We are then taken to another performance. This time, the performer is a man with ears all over his body, dancing. We see Tenser watching the show from the shadows, separate from the rest of the audience. He is approached by a lady, and she tells him of the Inner Beauty Pageant, an illegal event where evolved people show new organs that have grown in them but aren't removed like the government wants. She also tells him about Dr. Nassatir, a cosmetic surgeon who can help Tenser prepare for the pageant. After the performance, Tensor runs into Lang on his way home. Lang asks Tensor to do an autopsy on the body of his dead son, Brecken. Tensor looks interested, but doesn't give Lang his answer straight away. When he gets home, Tensor tells Caprice about Lang's proposal, and the two test out their surgery machine in preparation for the autopsy. In the next scene, Tensor meets the NVD detective. Tensor has been working undercover to help the detective uncover people who are evolving but aren't registering and removing their new organs, like Lang. Tensor is doing this because he does not like what is happening in his body and shows this by removing organs in his performances. Tensor asks for the detective's help to find and see Lang's ex-wife before he can perform an autopsy on her dead son's body. After meeting the detective, Tensor meets with Dr. Nassatir, who seems to be so happy and honored to meet him. Dr. Nassatir installs a zipper on Tensor's stomach that will allow people to see what is happening inside his body in preparation for the Inner Beauty pageant. Afterwards, Tensor visits Brecken's mother and talks to her about her son. She tells Tensor that the boy only ate synthetic and plastic stuff, and that his drool was like an acid that melted the plastic he ate. The mother claims that she killed the boy because he was no longer human. She seems crazy because she looks happy when she tells Tensor that she left the boy's dead body as a divorce gift for her ex-husband. The woman tells Tensor that she even confessed to the police, but the police did not believe her. In the next scene, we see Lang walking into a warehouse where the production of the purple bars takes place. Inside, there are more evolved people who can eat plastic like him, living in secrecy because the government is after them. Lang tells his partner that he plans to make his son's operation public to prove that people are evolving so that people like him can stop living in secrecy. We are then taken to another performance where a woman is getting her face cut open, and this time, Caprice is part of the audience. After the show, Caprice approaches the lady who was getting surgery, and it seems that they are longtime friends. Caprice tells her that watching the show gave her the feeling of wanting to be cut open. So the lady offers to perform surgery on Caprice, and Caprice accepts. When she goes home, Caprice tells Tensor that she wants to perform Brecker's autopsy. On the following day, Tensor goes to see Whippet regarding the Inner Beauty pageant. Tensor hesitates to get into the pageant after seeing Whippet's involvement and hearing that many people who will be involved plan to keep their organs despite the government being against it. Whippet convinces Tensor to participate, so he agrees to register for the pageant. Tensor runs into Timlin as he is leaving the organ registry office. She pulls him into her office and tells him that she is worried about Whippet and that she might need to turn him in, but Tensor tells her not to do that. After she relaxes, Tensor asks her if the organ registry office has come across a new organ system that can digest synthetic plastics, but she says no, and that they have only come across his single organs that he has been giving them. In the next scene, Tensor and Caprice visit Lang to prepare for Brecker's autopsy. Tensor asks Lang why he wants the autopsy done, and Lang says that he wants to make a public statement. Lang says that people are changing, just like Tensor himself. He says that Tensor should accept his evolution instead of removing his organs, and offers him one of the purple synthetic bars, but Tensor declines the bar. Later, Tensor meets with the detective alone and asks him if he should do the show and what are the objectives of the new Vice Police Department if they allow the autopsy. The detective approves the autopsy and tells Tensor that the cops want to capture Lang and his group of freaks. The detective tells Tensor that Lang's group is trying to normalize evolved people who can digest plastics and synthetics. His unit wants to prevent it because it strays from the way that human beings act and cannot be allowed to continue. We then see Dr. Nassatir having a meal when he hears an ominous knock on his door. He opens the door and finds Router and Burst, who say they came to fix his breakfast chair. Dr. Nassatir says that he did not call them, but they barge in and kill him. The girls walk out of the building with their toolbox, leaving Dr. Nassatir dead in his chair. On the night of the autopsy, Lang takes Tensor and Caprice to his warehouse where the autopsy will be carried out. Lang tells Tensor about the people who can eat plastics and synthetics, At first, these people just had random new organs growing in them, but they had a procedure done on them that enabled them to digest plastic using these organs. Brecken was the first and only person to be born with a digestive system that could digest plastic, but his mother killed him. Tensor finds it hard to believe that a surgery done on a father could be passed on genetically to his son. Lang tells him that Brecken was their miracle child and says that he wanted to present him to the world and show the future of humanity. But since the boy is dead, all they can do is present the dead little boy as a promise of their future. During the autopsy, we see Brecken's corpse on the autopsy table and Tensor performing the autopsy. Caprice walks beside the body, giving a narration to the audience. People are excited about what they will see, but when they open up the body, they unfortunately find that the internal organs were tattooed, implying that Brecken was not born with the ability to digest plastic, but was made through surgery. Lang steps out in disbelief and with his heart broken. He sits on the stairs and cries. Then shortly after, Router and Burst arrive and sit behind him. He tells them that his ex-wife changed Brecker's organs to hurt him, but the two ladies do not believe him. Instead, they drill his head and kill Lang the same way they killed Dr. Nassatir. Later, after the autopsy, Tensor meets up with the detective, and the detective admits that he had something to do with Brecken's internal organs. He admits that he made Timlin change the boy's organs before the autopsy. They did this because they couldn't let out the news that a boy who was naturally born evolved with the ability to digest plastic. But the detective says he has nothing to do with Lang's assassination. Tensor doesn't look happy with how things turned out, so he tells the police that he will no longer work undercover for them, and tells the detective that a part of him believes in Lang's claims of evolution. In the end, we see Tensor struggling to eat in his chair. He asks Caprice to give him a bar of the purple plastic that Lang made, and when he takes a bite from it, his pain stops, and we see him shed a tear and a smile form on his face. If you were to grow a new organ, what would you want it to be? Let me know in the comments below. And be sure to take a bite out of the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next recap. Thanks for watching.